Thank you everyone for tuning into this panel session, and thanks to Women in Payments for hosting us. Even not, we're not in a traditional conference setting, but it's still fantastic to be involved in the fantastic agenda that you've put together. Also, I guess a personal thank you for giving me the opportunity to remind myself what I can look like if I spend more than 5 minutes caring or considering my appearance. So that's nice, and very grateful for that, and I'm sure the audience are very grateful for that as well. So the session today is looking at how open banking and real-time may impact account-to-account payments. And these account-to-account payments are a service that have emerged out of open banking and the universal move to real-time payments, and is making real strides within the payments industry, I think particularly here in the UK. And I'm really excited to be hosting this panel. So not only am I joined by a brilliant selection of speakers, but it's a really compelling topic that I think is actually dictating a real future of payments, and it's a very timely time to have this discussion as well. So a brief introduction to myself. I'm Sarah Hollinshead, Global Account Director at RFI Group. For those of you who may be less familiar with us, we are a global data-driven business insights partner, and we focus exclusively on the financial services. We operate in 48 markets, and we're speaking to 500,000 consumers and 100,000 businesses every year, all about banking and payments, and specifically around behaviours and attitudes. And I'm hoping to be able to bring some of that data-driven insights into our discussion today. I'm also the co-host of the Global Digital Banker podcast, which is an insight-led podcast with, includes interviews with key industry leaders, and it's free to subscribe. So please do check that out if you've got a spare moment or two. We all have a little bit more spare moments or two at the moment, so if you're interested, please do tune in. So I'd love to welcome the panelists to introduce themselves briefly, and sort of where you fit in the open banking world, and also thought it would be nice, in light of our current situation, to share a sort of positive takeaway from lockdown thus far. So something you've achieved or you've learned that you feel is going to sort of transcend beyond times of lockdown. So it'd be great to learn a little bit more about yourselves there. I guess to kick it off, mine would be probably the endless, the amount of general knowledge that I have amassed from endless Zoom quizzes. I don't know who can relate to that. And also getting more involved in the local community and helping those in need, which I'm hoping to continue past the lockdown. So mine are personal, can be work related, but I'll hand over to you guys. Anna, why don't we kick off with you?
Hello everyone, my name is Anna Pora. I am the Commercial Strategy Director within Barclaycard Commercial Payments. I've been in payments for about 10 years so far, with a background in strategy before that. I focus on the issuing side of payments, looking at how businesses pay, from small businesses to large corporates. And we've been really working through looking forward, but also feeling the pains of change around PSD2 and open banking. And as a traditional card issuer, obviously interested and looking at the potential opportunities as well as the threats that the new faster payments, real-time payments and account-to-accounts pose, offering great choice to customers and suppliers. In terms of my big takeaways from this lockdown experience, being a mother of two, I've got two boys, Josh and Lucas, 8 and 5, trying to balance that home working and homeschooling. Huge renowned respect for all the teachers that take my kids Monday to Friday and keep them engaged and enthusiastic about learning, because I've got a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will relate to that right now as well. So thank you. And Lana, over to you.
Hello, I'm Lana Abdullaeva, and I'm honored to join the panel and delighted to contribute to the debate of future of payments, especially in this world of COVID and lockdown. We are seeing how the digital payments are playing a critical part to keep a very kind of critical part of our lives moving in various respects. But also it gives us very interesting data insights, how the behavior is changing and how our behavior as consumer changing in this evolving world. I am an independent speaker, and today I'm here as an independent speaker, but also I wear a few executive and non-executive hats. I'm non-exec member of Participant Advisory Council at the UK, and I'm director at Lloyds Banking Group. And for the past 2 and a bit years, I've been playing a significant part in open banking internally and externally, but also in the past 6 years, I've been a very active member of UK payments industry and community to shape the future of UK payment strategy. We have a lot of things happening in payments industry internationally and domestically. So we have a number of domestic payments infrastructure upgrades going on, including in UK and PA and UK. We have a number of wholesale payment infrastructures and RTGS systems upgrades internationally, including one in UK. We have the cross-border work sponsored by FSB and committed by G20, and everything is really focused on a more modern and digital payments of the future, as well as, of course, PSD2 and open banking. And finally, ISO 20022 globally that gives access to more data flowing through payments rails. Personally, I am excited about this opportunity and innovation opportunities that also changes and upgrades bring to us, and how we are actually challenging and expanding traditional boundaries of financial services in the UK and globally. And I am believers that in this world undergoing these significant changes, our responsibility as professionals is contribute to emergence and creation and implementation of the sustainable solutions for the future, for benefits of all end users, consumers and businesses alike. So I am very passionate about promoting that innovations through ecosystem collaboration. And with these new tools, gives us opportunity to shift some of the business models and considerations of the past. The pandemic and lockdown, on professional level, I think a lot of energy and a lot of commitment from these traditionally core service that supports our lives in UK. On a personal level, I'm amazed by my 19-year-old daughter who embraced the new skills and retrained herself to teach kids remotely. I think that's fascinating, even more than digital payments. So back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And yeah, everyone benefiting from online teaching at the moment in different ways. So that's awesome that your daughter's got involved. And last but not least, Holly.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks everyone for having me here today. So my name is Holly Coventry, and I work in the payment innovation team at American Express, and I'm head of product for our payment bank transfer payment initiation product, which we launched at the end of last year. So my experience with account-to-account payments and open banking is a very practical one, having built the product and taken it to market. I've been in payments for nearly 15 years now, and I've worked in a variety of card issuing roles, marketing roles, as well as product management roles as well. I think both of those stories about the recent lockdown situation resonate. And actually, Lana, I thought I could probably use some of your daughter's skills to help with my own homeschooling, because teaching is certainly not a profession that I should have got into. But I think actually aside from that, the other learning that I have is just how much I spent on coffee. On a daily basis, and now have a newfound budget, which I'm not sure I will find a home for, but actually realising those purchases that I was making on the way to work, at work, meeting peers and colleagues for coffee, is a small fortune, in fact.
Absolutely. And yeah, you either sort of save that in a pot for a future, rainy day, or you go onto Amazon and witter it away. Exactly. Which is an issue, I think, during these times. Well, thank you so much. Great to know a little better. And as I think you've all alluded to, there's such huge opportunities, but also challenges in this space, especially in light of the current pandemic. It raises questions, especially if we enter a more economic uncertain time, around trust, also around globalization, and generally around the uptake of these services. So it's a great time to be having this discussion. A bit of a view of RFI Group. So what we've actually seen in response to the current climate is customers, by far and away the most important thing for them and what they want from their banks right now is to provide that reassurance that the bank is stable and that their money is secure. So we're seeing, this trust and security, consumers sort of flocking to safety as really, really vital. And, historically, we've seen that trust is a real advantage of the bank. So, raises some really interesting questions on who's going to win in this account-to-account space. Schemes also benefiting massively from trust. And, are we seeing that leveling of the playing field that open banking was supposed to encourage? So certainly some interesting debates to talk through. But what I wanted to kick off with, and something we've absolutely seen in our data, is that appetite for, faster, safer, more convenient payments, and account-to-account services is really a true innovation that's intending to bring that to both businesses and consumers. So it would be great to hear your thoughts on those what are those top key benefits for the end user of payment initiated services that's going above and beyond what they're currently experiencing.
Sure, I'm happy to kick off, Sarah, if that helps. So I think, the payments industry has had to really move fast to innovate and adapt, given, as you say, to some of the changing behaviour of customers. And I think the customer experience is really now the linchpin of almost every successful company that we see today, particularly in a digital world. And, for payments, that's even more critical. I think one of the things that we have learned is that payment initiation actually allows customers to really make payments quickly without their card to hand. They're able to log in securely. They have got the trust that their bank provides. And I think, when with people pre-COVID obviously being so busy and on the go so many times, that convenience and that speed, along with the security, is really starts to bring to life a winning formula that delivers on some of that customer expectation and customer experience that the changing consumer is really demanding now.
I think that's a very good point. I think today customers expect a personalized, seamless, quick, secure, and reliable experience. And with better access to data and modern, more powerful technology and evolving regulation globally and domestically in UK and in Europe, it gives us a greater potential to serve customers' needs more holistically and more proactively. And also the increased data literacy is now shifting the value exchange, that trust or definition of the trust, from the competition of amount of data collected to actually analysis of data and information it delivers as a result. And just a bit of a sideline, I'm actually really delighted that today on a panel, I'm joined by my female peers. And thank you, Women in Payments, to give that opportunity and encourage us. On a typical panel, I would be the single out. And I
the
know
token
you
woman,
all,
yeah.
as a normal. So I think it's amazing to show as a customer how relevant it is to end customer experience. I'll tell you, I'm to the audience, if you haven't read the book Invisible Woman, I would offer you opportunity to do that. And that tells you exactly about how the logic and how the mindset, building the logic, analyzing the data, changes the outcome and results. Nobody did it, but the exclusion didn't happen by intent, but because the workforce powers that were working with data and analytics and creating that logic and utilizing the technology was with a one experience and one very similar experience in it. It actually led to significant gaps across all industry sectors, and payments are not, unfortunately, exception. So I'm delighted that in the payments industry today, we are moving to much more inclusive and much more considerate way. As a huge advocate for diversity and inclusion, and diversity of thought more than just gender or just race or culture, and also taking it from our homes to experience to our workplaces, and making it really work for the end customer, because guess what? It's at least 50% of the end users are females as well. And they're going through the same experiences of homeschooling and the same experience of other things in non-pandemic world. So if we sort of bring back to more generic view of the customer, consumers want increasingly frictionless and very personalized in-app services. But merchants want lower acceptance fees and boost conversations with their end users. And everybody wants security, fraud protection, together with quicker, faster, and cheaper payments. Traditionally, in the past, we were saying it's either speed or security. Guess what? We have a chance now with a new technology to build it more robust, more sustainable, more resilient, and more secure channels. And that's, I think, direction of travel. But also, new generation of consumers, and this is the results of analysis before COVID, they tend to go less for the credit and delayed payments. They were more focused on real cash exchange in the digital world. I don't know if the COVID situation and lockdown and crisis situation changes that behaviors because of the different needs and different wealth power, which quite likely it could happen on a temporary basis. But all researchers of the past were showing that. But also some of the particularly kind of payment products or payment services that were on demand is things like request to pay and pool payments. So that's dynamic of the sort of shift to account-to-account services, more inclusive domain of and more inclusive ecosystem, also gives opportunity as well as API connectivity and technology to deliver that.
Yeah, and you must be seeing a similar thing from a buyer and supplier perspective, Anna, because you know, these you know, Lana's touched upon some of those things that are quite unique to cards, so late payment opportunities, or, you know, other things, other rewards, insurance. It'd be great to hear your view from a buyer supplier perspective and how you see that changing, especially with COVID-19.
And well, tackling first of all the benefits or the features of accounts to account within a B2B environment. When you're looking at buyers, corporate buyers, be them large suppliers or smaller businesses making those supply payments, we know that that ecosystem is so incredibly complex. So having new technology within that environment that could speed up and simplify those transactions is a great opportunity. But what we've seen is that it hasn't quite been adopted at the rate that you would have expected it. And maybe it's because immediacy of payments it's not necessarily the focus when you're thinking about B2B, because actually within B2B, you've got a slight counter of objectives between those who are making the purchases and paying out, who actually want to potentially hold on to their money a little bit longer, versus those suppliers who are waiting for the payments to land and really want the payment to land early and at the very latest on time. What account to account offers, however, is that security or certainty that that payment has left your account and has landed in the account that you wanted it to land. So that level of information and immediacy confirmation is pretty key. I also think that in B2B, not all payments are the same. You've got the standard accounts payable curve where you've got at one end those really knotty small value transactions often made between buyers and suppliers that don't really know each other. And on the other end, you've got those real large value transactions made by or between buyers and suppliers that have really strong relationships with each other. And the need at those ends also vary. I think account to account could have a great use case at the strategic end, where actually alternative payment methods beyond backs, if you think of cards, they've got a real barrier to entry because the cost of accepting those payments to those suppliers are huge if you start to apply interchange to large value transactions, and there you get the limited acceptance. And I think particularly with the innovation that's due to come down the line, and Lana, you referred to it in terms of request to pay. That's going to provide a real opportunity and use case at the end of strategic payment, where actually you can start matching needs of buyers and suppliers, whereby through early payment, early request for payment, for example, you can find opportunity for early discounts and actually start to aligning those objectives of the two sides of the coin. But then, yeah, within COVID, I think also there's been some significant complications. Supply chains have got a little bit weaker. And you might, particularly at the ad hoc end of that tail, you might be, buyers might be a little bit worried about the sustainability of those suppliers that they're buying from. So if they release a payment, do they know they're going to get the good back in return? And that actually might bring back some of the advantages of traditional card payments, which come with some of those value-added services such as insurance. That customer, at work, we're actually hearing customers really request that and highlighting those benefits and needs once again.
Yeah, which are very card-oriented sort of value-added services at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely interesting times. And you also mentioned about the uptake of these services, and I'd be interested to hear from the other panelists around, you know, what have we seen in terms of uptake so far, and how do you predict, or how has COVID-19 already impacted this? And I'll go to you, Holly, because I know that you have a lovely COVID-19 related example here. But yeah, it'd be great to hear your experiences at American Express on this.
Yeah, so I'll start with the feel-good factor. So Giving were actually one of our launch merchants for Pay with Bank Transfer. So we've been working with them since last year on launching the product. And obviously, Captain Tom set up his donation page through Just Giving, of which we were one of the payment options as well. So we had to, you know, pretty quickly make sure that the technology was going to hold up, which, as the panel found out already, isn't always, you know, a guarantee this time. And it scaled, you know, really quickly within a very short space of time. But actually, what we saw was that consumers were in that kind of payment journey. Consumers want to ensure that the payment is going directly to where they want it to. So actually the growth and the customer adoption that we saw primarily through that Captain Tom's campaign was great. I think, you know, more broadly, open banking is addressing, you know, head on this customer demand that there is for faster and easier and more convenient payments. And I think the challenge that everybody working in the spaces and bringing propositions to market is, how do you translate all of the opportunity that open banking brings into propositions that answer that customer need? The customer doesn't necessarily know what they want the solution to be. The example that's always used is if you said to somebody, would you ever use a phone without a keypad? A customer would have laughed at you, but now here we all are, no one uses a keypad anymore. But what the customer does want is things to be speedy, they want it to be secure, and they want it to be easy. So I think really where we'll see that customer adoption is the customer doesn't need to know necessarily what an open banking is or an account-to-account payment is, but as those propositions start to come to market that answer that so what question for the consumer, that's really going to drive the adoption, and ultimately the success will be defined by the consumer seeing that that value and that value exchange as well that Lana was talking to earlier.
And actually, corporate world. Sorry, Lana.
I think open banking API connectivity gives opportunity to shape different relationships, and it gives opportunity to bring new players to traditional financial services market to deliver that personalized experience. So obviously with COVID, we see the e-commerce perhaps taking a bigger part in our lives, especially as we're spending more weeks at home, and as some of the weather conditions change and we move through the seasons, some of the kind of things that perhaps happen in person need to happen remotely or need to happen through the internet offers. And that shifting the preferences as well, and it's shifting the lifestyles. But from ecosystem perspective, it helps the ecosystem to be more inclusive and start a new type of relationship from business perspective, and enables that through that powerful API connectivity. I would say, so that it would be interesting to see how post-pandemic, when we come back to the predictions of the drop in cash usage was there already, and it was discussed and reviewed and pre-planned for over the past few years. And the predictions before COVID indicated that first a drop in the cash usage in UK for up to 50% over about 5 years. We've seen that drop just over the first week, and yes, there's some of which will come back and some of it due to restrictions of lockdown, but it definitely, as the longer we stay in, the longer our behavioral changes and how habits are changing, and it's quite likely we'll speed things up. So traditionally, cohort of customers who were not comfortable with digital services, they now learned that. They went through their personal barriers of comfort zones, and they now have new norm and new reality. So hence, even without restrictions, they actually learn some of the convenience of it. So I think that digital adoption overall, in a wider sense, definitely exponentially increased over this past few weeks, and depending how long more we have to stay, it will have significant impact.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. It's something we're looking at, at RFI Group in terms of understanding have they overcome those barriers for good? Are these going to be sustained behaviors? And that's where we're going to see, adoption of these types of services really increase.
And as Lana said, I think society has just been lift and dropped in the digital environment, and we've had to figure out how to operate. Businesses who were quite happy operating quite analog and in analog fashion realize that they need to leapfrog some of the innovation stack that was right at the bottom of their list in order just to stay in business. So some of those decision points which required investment and to actually bring some innovation into play have just been put right at the top of their agenda. Yeah.
And that leads me on really nicely to my next... Sorry, Lana, go ahead.
It also shifted the concepts, right? Where in the past and over the past few decades, we were just automating the traditional financial services pyramid type hierarchical structures, right? The financial system of the past was built based on distribution of localized assets. And what we've been doing, we were automating the existing processes within that business model. So we were not really like taking the life example from horses, we went to cars, to trains, and to speed trains. But we were really automating the same rails, the same trajectory. Where the technology, there's access to data, the new technologies, the new connectivity, the new capacity of technology power to deal with this massive amount of data and personalize it more for the sake of end users. It gives opportunity to shift the mindset, to shift the business models, and shape new relationship where we start designing the planes. And I think that's what is exciting to me, that power of creativity, not just engineering, but power of science and creativity that you know, has potential to drive for the ecosystem growth, but for the end user benefit.
And so then where does that leave the traditional rails as we move on? You know, what happens to the traditional card? And we've seen, you know, really big organizations, you know, Swift, MasterCard and Visa making some quite unprecedented business model, you know, transformations and acquiring businesses. So there's real big changes happening as the payments industry and ecosystem drive forward. So where does that leave? You know, is the traditional card under threat in your view?
Much place for we talked about some of the value-added services that come with it today. The question is whether once the future innovation in account-to-account or real-time payments actually comes into place, how will card continue to distinguish themselves? I think it's the buyers, suppliers, consumers, merchants will still want choice and offer the range of opportunities to bring together and enable those transactions. The question will probably be, how does the relative share vary according to the payment type over the years?
I think that's key, Anna. You know, delivering a range of choices for consumer allows you also to ensure that you're serving a wide range of consumers as well. And I think you want to be able to offer options for them and a choice of how they're going to pay, depending on what's most relevant based on what they're purchasing. You know, as Anna mentioned, you know, whether it's buyers, whether it's suppliers, whether it's a consumer purchase, there's huge opportunity for each method of payment at different times. So I think you know, you have to look at the ecosystem more holistically rather than it just being one or the other. I know, you know, that our central to our strategy is always about offering choice and making sure that the consumer has the choice of how and when they want to pay based on what they're trying to do.
And
yeah, I think to me, so definitely choices to end user, and also a combination of those choices. So the new technology gives us new connectivity and interoperability domestically across different sectors, different type of products, and internationally with our counterparts. So I think that interoperability of different elements that could deliver a more personalized and more holistic experience, and giving consumers and users a choice to pick and choose, would become quite a significant driver to the future of success. Like shifting business models, shifting relationships, shifting not just personal but also the business relationship, and also having open mind about what actually could be achieved together rather than either or.
And I know that inclusivity of the ecosystem is something that you're really passionate about, Lana. But I'd be interested in hearing everyone's thoughts, you know, around the role of trust. If trust does so significantly continue to be an advantage of the traditional banks and of the schemes within the UK, is that going to create an advantage in the account-to-account world? Are we really going to see that opportunity for new entrances or for you know, smaller digital players to you know, seize a slice of this pie, or is trust, you know, because it's so inherently linked with larger players, are they going to be the, you know, does that advantage hotly debated topic?
I think it's a really complex topic. One hypothesis I've got is that there's going to be, trust is going to be key for store of value, and customer experience and execution ability is going to be the driver for transactional values. So a bit of a distinction around who do I give my funds to look after, and who do I turn to achieve an effective distinguished
collaboration as well. So where I think there could be huge opportunity actually is even greater collaboration between some of those smaller fintechs, you know, who've really got the agility and creativity to build some of these products and services, working with some more of the established industry players who, you know, can bring that infrastructure, that trust, that security, you know, that governance. I think where you start to see real exciting things happening and coming to the market, and really good customer outcomes as well, is that collaboration between the fintechs and the more established players. I don't know that there necessarily has to be this, you know, us and them approach actually.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think definitely it's opportunity of the choices and combination of that choices. And I think that depending on the circumstance, as Anna alluded to, your definition of trust could be vary a little bit. And so that becomes kind of growing from just loyalty of a single relationship and one box fits all, to variety of the choices and getting what you need from different players in terms of the type of services. I definitely agree with Anne's point in terms of taking care of my assets and my wealth and providing me a service and that transactional value. But also, I think depending on the type of the transaction and size of the transaction and type what actually that transaction delivers in terms of your life, it would be quite different, right? The purchase of the house would be different to purchase of the groceries. Your wedding dress, you tend to spend a bit more time on, therefore ready to spend a bit more time to making the payment. Where you're doing the groceries between homeschooling and your work conference, and you just need to order it quick, the same as last week, you probably want it very quick and seamless. But in all that, the security and resilience and the reliance on that service being there for you is definitely strong. And there's only one mistake breaks the trust. So that's kind of very important too. In terms of the relationship and new shapes of relationship and those partnerships perhaps in the business play, I think there's also, it depends on who brings what to the table. So definitely investment power and capital power to make things happen. But also there is a nimble agility to experiment, and combination of two is important, and it doesn't always come from the same source. By definition, psychologically slightly different kind of risk appetite and different expectations to regulators. So actually creating that level playing field for the ecosystem where you sort of remove barriers to entrance to help with competition and innovation and moving forward, but ensuring that there's no weak spot in that end-to-end chain that could break that ecosystem and actually be damaging to whole population of customers rather than just single customer.
Absolutely. I feel, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Sarah, I was just going to say, actually, times like this is, can bring about opportunity for companies to really deliver and prove that, they've got the trust and security of consumers as well, because, when the going gets tough, they're the times that people remember. It's paramount in the financial sector, and where technological change is driving a lot of this as well, and people's data and money is being shared and used. There's really an opportunity for all members of the ecosystem to really build and maintain that trust. But actually, I wonder whether, as we come out of this, consumers will remember who they could trust and where things were reliable and who they relied on at this point. So actually, there is opportunity here for a lot of companies, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and it's actually from some early reads that we've got around the current situation globally. We're seeing that sort of satisfaction of their relationship with their key payment providers and with their key banks actually slightly on the up, because I think people appreciate that response and that safety measures and knowing that that's that relationship is just sort of increased in their mind probably, and therefore that's what's driving that response. But something that's very interesting and we'll certainly be tracking. I feel like we could talk about trust and security for a long time, but I'm conscious of time, and I know that Anna's kids are potentially gonna run in and jump on her any minute now. So I wanted to close up with a question about international expansion. So I know a lot of you have experience in and some sort of challenges as well in rolling this out across other markets, and particularly from that cross-border payments perspective, that's a real pain point that really needs to be tackled, but is still something that I think the industry globally is struggling to overcome. And obviously currently international operations have sort of come to a grinding halt in many perspectives. So it'd be great to hear your experiences and your thoughts on, will we have a globalized approach to this? Will those international payments be solved by these account-to-account measures?
Yeah,
go on.
No, so go ahead. I was just going to say, we just had a long discussion about how the industry is innovating at a faster pace than ever before, and I think the challenge is it's still very fragmented, and open banking in particular, whether it's an open banking led account-to-account payment or not, it's still very dependent on local market regulation and real-time payment structures available. Yeah. So I think on one hand you've got consumers demanding consistency, expecting that consistency, very much living with a global mindset and global consumers. It's I think the industry has got a way to go before it kind of catches up with where consumers are from a consistency and a global perspective as well.
Well, just to back that up, I recently held a panel session with some small business customers. So these are customers paying out, and some of them had global supply chains, so providers internationally. And when we talked about their biggest pain points, it was international payments and just how much of their time they spend chasing and figuring out at what stage of that journey their payment is, whether it's actually landed in the right account. And all these customers want to do, or it's my customers, but what these businesses want to do is run their business. And they're having to spend time on the phone chasing payments. So it's still a huge pain point that the industry needs to fix.
How far are we from fixing it, do you reckon?
I think it's a big task. There'll probably be that there's intention there. If you think about what's happening in Europe with Pepsi and the European faster payment network, the fact is that actually getting a unified, ubiquitous, frictionless global, we're pretty far away from that. but elements are falling into place, like the new standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things are driven by the old school technology and how it's involved domestically, and there is kind of lack of connectivity. So definitely API connectivity brings potential and opportunity, but we all know through the open banking and PSD2 journey, especially in Europe, the diversity of API standards is quite a significant part of it. So considerations on that is definitely part of it. Is harmonization of some of the rules that perhaps created in that kind of financial services structures of the past. And perhaps now is the time to kind of move forward and evolve. So some of it is very operational and technical, requires significant investment but has a potential. Some of it is led to disagreement and requirement on inconsistency of compliance rules applied or as a sayings. So I think it's a combination of two, is as we progress with the technology advancements, but also as ongoing cooperation and collaboration. Obviously, it is recognized by the, globally by central banks and by the regulators and governments. And Financial Stability Board sponsored a piece of work of assessment of cross-border frictions and what it may take to resolve some of the. So it's a quite significant step forward, and quite looking forward to see what comes of it. It's probably the biggest collaboration in payments industry beyond PSD2 at the moment. But also some of the private sector investment, such as the main card companies, Visa and MasterCard, as well as a swift investment in strategy and ISO 20022 compliance, gives opportunity to operationally and technologically move to that new rails, which gives that kind of potential for wider and more interoperable systems. Interestingly enough, that some of the research shows that while the consumer and businesses needs are conceptually very much similar across jurisdictions, we all sort of need to pay salaries to employees, we need to pay bills as consumers, we need to buy things, but it's about 75% of the commonality across Europe of the payment infrastructures, and the rest is the difference in how the rules apply to settlement and clearing layers and connectivity with central banks or payment system operators. So that's quite significant part of still, even with the new upgrades and infrastructures are different, and without kind of coordination power globally, it would be very difficult to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems, and I think, yeah, the current situation has only sort of put more hurdles in sort of solving that situation. But what's clear from this conversation is that the strides that we've made in the UK have certainly been greater, and they're going to continue to get greater. And I think we're all passionate about the potential of account-to-account services in benefiting all of our end customers. So it was fantastic to have you all sharing your thoughts today. A real privilege to get all of your perspectives. We could talk forever, but we're running out of time now. So yeah, thank you so much for your input. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Anna.